Now, what is the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is the omnipresence of God. So there's many different facets to God, and it's critical that they're all understood. And by the end of this explanation, I hope that God is no longer a dirty word for you, because that's another dirty word in the spiritual community that not many people choose to use. I choose to use it because creator, universe, collective consciousness, while these things display attributes of God, they do not intone, they do not reverberate, they do not resonate the proper amount of reverence and awe and respect that should be accorded a being of singular intelligence that knows itself as being every single one of us simultaneously, knows our past and knows our future, created the sensory mechanisms by which we experience our world: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. Like, these were inventions. These were inventions. First there was nothing, and now we can see, hear, taste, touch, feel, and smell. We have ground to walk on. We have air that we can breathe. We have the glorious sun that shines on us, water that we can drink, food that we can eat, sounds that we can hear. We can talk to each other. We can communicate. Where before there was only one being, knowing itself as being the all. Now there's many beings that have the all, that have God inside of them, that are one with God. So this type of relationship that I'm going to teach you to enter into with God involves a fifth dimensional understanding. So that's an anchor point. That's a root of this church, is a fifth dimensional understanding of reality and a fifth dimensional connection to reality. And this is obtained in two ways: through the practice of energy mastery and through the reprogramming of the mind. First, by understanding the intellectual data of what it means to be a fifth dimensional consciousness, and then by the art of affirmation. Part of why this meeting is called affirmation, because we must constantly affirm to ourselves that we are beings of fifth dimensional interpretation of reality. Because the fifth dimensional interpretation of reality is so vastly different from the third. But in order to become fifth dimensional consciousness, you must think in fifth dimensional terms. In order to think in fifth dimensional terms, you must expose yourself to fifth dimensional understanding again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Just like if you're going to learn to think in a foreign language, you have to first learn that language, then you have to train your consciousness to actually think in that language. So that's what we're going to be doing. Fifth dimensional understanding of reality. Everything is now. The past, the future are one. They're all right here. They're all right now. In fifth dimensional understanding, you were not born in time. You came from right now. You came from right here. In fact, there's a now that is so deep, that is so much more now than everything that we call now, that when you find it, you discover that it's the source of every single thing that we call now. Time flows out of us like a river, spherically. Spherically, it comes out of our central heart location, which is the center of the universe. In the fifth dimension, we are oriented towards a universal understanding, meaning you have become a universal embodiment yourself, meaning that you know that everything that's around you, everything that surrounds you, the world that you're in, the universe that you're in, is actually a part of your internal being. That's a foundational fifth dimensional understanding. I'm going to set the phone down so I can use some body language here to explain this further. Okay. Fifth dimensional interpretation of reality is actually far more basic, far more crude, if you will, than a third dimensional interpretation. In the third dimension, it's vast. Like we have all this land. Like I'm in Bali, you guys are in America, in the United States, you're in Europe, you're in Australia, or wherever. We look through our telescopes and oh my God, there's the moon, there's the stars, there's the Pleiades, there's all these different places. In the fifth dimension, there's only one place, and it's no place at all. The core of the fifth dimension is energy, which is centered within the heart, within what I call the heart of Christ, and I'll explain that later. But the fifth dimensional center of the universe is deep within your being, so deep that you wouldn't even find it if you had a scalpel, if you had a knife and you cut yourself open and you look for the center, you would not find it because it's so deep in the core of your being that it's compressed. It's tighter in reality than what's third dimensionally observable. So there's one single spherical wave of energy that's undulating. It's vibrating, but not like a two-dimensional wave. It's a standing wave, and it's spherical, going in and out, and it's composed of different densities. It has layers like an onion, and the further in you go, the more compressed it is, the more dense it is, the more particles per square inch, the stronger the vibration, the more intense it is, and it gets progressively lighter the further that you go out. So at the very deep core, this is actually still, it's not vibrating, it's hard as a rock, it's like a diamond. And that's the core, that's the heart of God, that's the heart of Christ, and it's located deep within you. And it's going to be one of the key things that you seek alignment with in this church is finding the heart of God, the heart of Christ within the center of your being. Once again, it's hard as a rock, it's not vibrating. It's so dense and compressed that if this entire universe were to collapse, if the empty space were to be sucked out of it, then everything that we know as space and time would be about the size of a walnut, and it would be hard as a rock. It would be like a super polished diamond, like a crystal of a density and a hardness that goes beyond anything that we could possibly understand. So surrounding that, we have densities of energy going from greater to lesser. So the further out it goes, the lighter in vibration it becomes. So we're here in what we call the third density, which is two densities out from the core, from the heart of Christ. So surrounding the diamond heart is a layer of reality and energy that's so thick, so intense that it's fluid like water, and you can perceive it coming out of you in high states of consciousness. Well, an emanation and an echo that's beyond that is the energy that we form and call the third dimension of reality. So our sensory system is anchored in the third density and interpreting these vibrations as sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. We're interpreting it as ground, as sky, as stars, as every single thing that we observe. And within this spherical energy is every vibration simultaneously that our consciousness interprets. And this happens automatically through the nervous system of the human body, the brains that God has given us, the neuron structure in the brains, the nervous system, the electrical system of the body. Our free-flowing spirit has anchored itself within that system so much that it no longer senses the other ranges of vibrations of spirit that we came from. So the benefits of that is that we automatically are able to translate this third density vibration of energy as the gorgeous world that we perceive. Like that would be a feat of consciousness beyond imagination if you were in pure spirit and did not have a physical body in order to interpret what is just simply a formless wave of vibration into all of this would be a feat of consciousness beyond imagination. But thanks to the physical body, it happens automatically. The downside of it is that we no longer sense spirit. We fell asleep. We are asleep within this paradigm because the nervous system and the neurons of the mind are giving us so much sensory data that we do not have enough consciousness left to sense anything else. But in part of this training, what you're going to be doing is bringing enough of your consciousness into the here, into the now, to where you can observe all of the data that your nervous system is giving you. And then there's a magic moment where your consciousness has leftover room to observe even more. So there's two ways you can evolve into spirit. There's focus and there's meditation. These are the two types of energy exercises. In meditation, you let go. In meditation, you ignore. You go into theta, you put on an audio tracker, you close your eyes and go deep within yourself, and you ignore the physical data. And if you do that to enough of a point, you begin to vibrate into spirit. You begin to remember spirit because you're ignoring all of the data that your electrical system is giving you. And then there's a magical moment where you pop out of your body, and all of a sudden you're in an out of body experience because you've ignored your physical senses enough to where the spiritual senses became apparent enough to your consciousness where it became your anchor point. So the other way, the more advanced way, and the way that Avatar is more focused on doing is, well, focus, where you anchor all of your presence. You subtract awareness from all external things and observe what's happening inside of your body. And then there's a magical point where you observe it enough to where you swell beyond it. Next thing you know, your spirit, your consciousness, your mind grows, and you're able to sense all of this. Everything that's outside of you becomes connected to the inside of you. And there's no way to describe the miracle of that. It has to be experienced. So that's the heart of fifth dimensional understanding. Involves, well, a fourth dimensional connection. Fourth dimension is being connected beyond the range of the body, the senses that the 3D gives you. You begin to sense in spirit, and that puts you in a fourth dimensional interpretation. But I don't really give much credence to the fourth. These are just labels that the human consciousness has come up with. The fifth is a solid harmonic. The third is a solid harmonic. What they call the fourth is just the in-between. And that's why it's so chaotic. That's why it's known to, well, it has positive, it has negative, it's not harmonized. It's chaotic. And that's why a lot of people like try to avoid the fourth entirely, because it's an in-between. It's not an actual harmonic. So now that we know that we can obtain this expanded sense of consciousness, where does God fit into all of it? So as energy masters, as practitioners of energy mastery and consciousness expansion, we seek to develop traits that are measures of growth for us. We try to grow in love. Love is magnetism. Love is gravity. Love is attraction. Love is straight up strength and power, not the humanized concept of love, but the force of love. The more love that you have inside of your being, the more magnetic you are. So there's love, which is a property of the space that light flows through. Light or vibration is another property of energy. We're always seeking to not only raise our vibration, but also to lower it, to have a greater range above and below what the 3D senses provide for us. So we're always growing in vibration, we're always growing in love and magnetism, and we're always growing in what I call soul mass, which is the amount of external reality that your consciousness is able to envelop, to hold, to know as being a part of itself. Well, once you choose to make God a part of your energy mastery, and not just a part of it, but to be devoted, I can testify that the amount of love, the amount of light, the amount of soul mass, all of these dynamic traits of energy, your ability to heat up, your ability to cool down, your ability to have electrical sensations, your ability, every single ability that we strive for and work towards in energy mastery is massively enhanced by choosing to have a relationship with God. So there's two primary aspects that I want to familiarize yourself with that we're going to seek to be in alignment with. And let me set the phone down one more time. I think it's better to have body language for this. Okay. So back to the fifth dimensional sphere of reality and the various densities. in your growth, in your rise upward as an expansion of consciousness as an energy master, you get to a point where you expand your consciousness so far through all the densities, all the energy, all the vibration in the singular sphere that is interpreted as the many spheres, right? So the idea that there's this planet, there's that planet, there's all these different planets, that's a third dimensional interpretation. These are just different ranges of vibration. And if an energy is in a certain range of vibration, the 3D senses say, well, oh, that's a different planet. That's the Pleiades, or that's Arcturus, or whatever. If you're in the fifth, then it's all just energy, and it's all just a part of this one sphere of energy that God created. So if you expand beyond this entire range, there's a magical point that you reach in expansion to where you grow beyond all of it. So surrounding this singular sphere is the infinite, is the nothing, or what some people call the void. But I don't really like that term, because not only is it not empty, it's full. Not only is it not nothing, it's everything. Not only is it everything, it's more than everything, because it's the source of everything that ever will be. So surrounding this miraculous fifth dimensional sphere of spiritual energy that the entire universal construct exists within is the infinite, is the void. And in that void, that infinite literally is the mind of God. And this is what I'm always going to mean when I reference God. So God is the part of the consciousness, the God consciousness, that is surrounding all of this and looking back in. This is what I call the parental, God the parental. This is the part of God that's like a gardener, like a caretaker, looking back in on the creation and tending it from this infinite perspective. And this is what we seek to be in communion with as we grow, as we expand our consciousness outwards. Now, if you do the opposite of that, if you go on your journey inwards into this sphere of energy and you complete that journey, which means that you penetrate the crystal, what I call the diamond heart, the heart of Christ that I described, it's like the entire universe as a super compressed crystal. When you gain enough love, enough self-love, enough self-acceptance, enough love of God, your consciousness can go inward sufficient to penetrate that crystal. And when you do, you will slide through its material substance and you will be on the inside, and you will see that inside the crystal is the same exact substance that surrounds the universe. The infinite, the God, the mind of God that is surrounding all of this, a little piece of that is contained within the heart of Christ, within the crystal in the very center of your chest. And a little piece is all it takes, because this is the infinite, right? So the sum totality of all that God the parental ever is, was, or will be is inside of you as a gift, inside of your being held by the consciousness that we call Christ, being caretaken for you until you're ready to come into harmony with that and accept your gift, which is to become a son or a daughter of God, to literally become a Christ yourself. So that's caretaken by the consciousness that we call Christ, which is, best way to describe that is, it's not masculine or feminine, it's both. So there's the son and there's also the daughter. If you want to use Earth's history, there's Christ and there's Mary. These are terms that we could associate with it, but it's beyond any one life. So every single life that has ever lived, every single child of God that has ever been born is contained in that summary, in that seed that we call Christ. So from this perspective, from the heart of Christ, you're able to be in full communion and full communication with God the surrounding, God the parental. And this is what it means in the scriptures where it says, none can come unto the Father except through me. There's absolute truth to that. And I know that it offends spiritual people to hear that, because they know deep inside themselves, like I can know God, like I don't need any mediary to truly know God. And that is true. You don't need a mediary in the terms of personality, but you do need that essence, because this is the fifth dimensional structure of the universe, is communication. Communication between God, the parental, the infinite, looking back in, and God, the incarnation, the actual, that's the source. This is the seed, God, the seed, the part of God, the infinite, that's inside looking out. That's the Christ, and it's situated inside of you, inside of your heart. So only the heart of Christ, this is the only part of the entire construct of energy that is in full communion with the surrounding consciousness, with God the parental. So if you seek to have a relationship with God the parental without first seeking the heart of Christ within you, you will end up having a quasi or a pseudo relationship with God at best. At worst, you will end up connecting to a very negative aspect of God, and it will not be a pleasant experience, because everything in between here and the parental is everything, the positive, the negative, that there's almost infinite numbers of consciousness that are ready to claim themselves as God, ready to announce themselves as being the creator and take over and guide your life, but they're not the authentic. They're not the real deal. They're simply highly evolved consciousness that are lost in their own grandeur and trying to claim something prematurely that is not theirs, because they themselves are not in full communion. So we seek the heart of Christ within ourselves in order to be in a full communion with the surrounding consciousness. And this is our fulfillment. This is what it means to have a higher understanding, a true understanding of what God really is, of what this universe really is. And this is the type of relationship that you're going to be obtaining with God through this church, is an inside out relationship. And the last thing I want to cover on this topic is collective consciousness. This is what we are growing into. In collective consciousness, not only are we one with all the surrounding space, not only are we able to feel everything external to ourselves as literally being a part of ourselves, but we're also able to feel every being, every person, every being, every animal, every extraterrestrial, doesn't matter what they are. If it's alive and it's external to you, in collective consciousness, you're able to feel that internally. Everywhere you go, there you are. Love thy neighbor as thine own self, because thy neighbor is thine own self. So that's where all these things start to make sense. So this is a relationship with God through fifth dimensional understanding, through collective consciousness. God, in New Age spiritual terms, is the higher self, the ultimate higher self. So if you're going to have a higher self, you might as well aim high. You might as well aim high, because truthfully, any consciousness that is in this fifth dimensional spherical wave of expanding energy that is above you can claim to be your higher self. And it would be true. But would it be the ultimate truth? No. Only God the infinite, the consciousness surrounding us that is not made of light, not made of vibration, not made of magnetism, but the source of all of these things, the infinite, the void, only that is the true God, the true parental consciousness that you should be working with.